Hey, how's it going, everyone? Can you actually retire on $200,000? A dividend investing strategy. Let's try to figure this out with some of the best dividend players in the game. The LeBron James, Lionel Messi investments that provide a beautiful dividend income. Those popular and stable investments with a higher than average dividend yield will be JEPQ, my preferred covered call ETF, Main Street Capital, which is a BDC, and to be honest, it was a toss-up between Main and ARK. Realty Income Corporation, which I think is the best REIT out there, and last but not least, SCHD, the classic and GOAT dividend index fund. Broken down, I tried to expose most of the 200K towards the higher dividend yield choices, which meant 50% of it is allocated into JEPQ, 25% into Main Street Capital, 15% into Realty Income Corporation, and 10% into SCHD. Now let's look at the numbers that you care about. The dividend yield was a little over 7%, and it spit out a pretty respectable $14,000 annually in dividends. Monthly, that's $1,200, which is not bad at all. And at this point, we're probably all thinking the same thing. It might be a little rough surviving on just this dividend income, but fear not. If we don't touch the principal amount, which is the initial 200K, then the dividends should grow and pay out more every single year. So if we do not add any more money into this hypothetical portfolio and we do not reinvest the dividends, then in 20 years, the annual dividend payout should be around $28,000 a year. It would basically keep up with the rate of inflation, so your purchasing power should be relatively the same with the initial $14,000 in dividends from the beginning. And then, of course, the final portfolio value should be around $360,000. Now, just for fun, obviously this is a video about retirement, but if you were to reinvest the dividends into the portfolio to buy more shares, then in 20 years, the annual dividend payout should be around $94,000, all else equal. Pretty wild to see the power of dividends compounding, right? And what's even more wild is the final portfolio valuation, which would reach $1.2 million on the basis of a 3% share growth rate every year and 3% dividend growth rate. That's really mild and conservative numbers. And yes, the portfolio would still reach $1.2 million without adding any more outside money into the portfolio. If this does not motivate you for dividend investing, then nothing else will. When I see data like this and the history of my own portfolio going up, it excites me. I feel like a chubby person in a Chinese buffet loading up my plate with the sushi, which I'm telling you right now, if you go to a Chinese buffet, the sushi is where it's at. So can I retire off of $200,000? With this annual dividend payout of about $14,000, if you live in a high cost of living area, it would be tough. No way to sugarcoat it or to be delusional. But with that said, if you have Social Security checks pouring in and you're making 401k or TSP withdrawals, or you have some other type of pension like the military, then I would say it's doable. Now, it won't be a fancy life and you might have to skip a meal or two, but you could live. However, there's a huge difference between living and thriving. I guess the better word choice would be surviving versus thriving. Let me give you an example because I see you. You're justifying how you can make it work with just $1,200 a month in dividends and eating instant ramen like a broke college student. So a little fact about me. I used to be an aquarium guy, and it made my titties tired whenever I saw a betta fish living in a cup, or a tiny mason jar like what you see on the left side of your screen. I mean, obviously he's not dead, but he could be way happier in a planted tank with more space to swim around, like what you see right here. So, to answer the original question, could you retire off of $200,000 into dividend investments? You could, but should you? That's the bigger question, right? And on the other hand, 200K might sound like a small retirement portfolio, but it could definitely provide the option and freedom to do a semi-retirement, meaning you could probably quit your highly stressful job and cut back the work hours to do something like 20 hours a week with a change in pace doing something entirely different, like driving for Uber and setting your your own hours, becoming a grocery store stocker, or anything else in the gig economy. Then you would have more time on your hands to do your hobbies or to spend it with loved ones. All I'm trying to say is extra free time could even be the variable you needed in place to finally get into shape and lose some of the extra weight that you've been carrying around. You might be happy as you are, but please believe me when I say this. Life could be even better when you're healthy. And if no one is going to encourage you today, then take it from me. Change can happen if you are consistent and disciplined and have a little bit of patience, which are qualities you should already possess if you are a dividend investor. Anyways, I did some looking around and I ran across a YouTube channel that's dedicated to Uber and Lyft called Driver Eddie. He's got about 300,000 subscribers and it was pretty entertaining to watch. And from driving 11 hours for Uber, he made about $477 in a single day. Just to give an idea of the numbers behind part-time work. Maybe that means you only have to work once a week as an Uber driver if you're otherwise happy with the dividends you would be getting. I don't know about you, but a single day's work yielding about $300 to $450 is not a bad deal. Then again, when you break it down into the hours, it's about $45 an hour, which I think is pretty decent. And worst comes to worst, if you really want to retire off of $200,000 invested into dividends, then you might have to sell some stuff and physically relocate. Stay with me. If you want to stay in the US, these areas seem doable because of their low cost of living score when you compare it to the US average. I'm talking about Amarillo, Texas, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and almost anywhere in Ohio, Kansas, Indiana, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. Now, you won't be in a major city like DC, New York City, or San Francisco, but at least you'll be able to afford the bills on a smaller budget. Me personally, I couldn't do it. I'm a big city guy and I love the urban life. So if that means I need a bigger retirement portfolio, then that's what I would do. But out of this list, I would probably go with Texas, as I used to live there. There's a lot of nice cities in Texas besides Amarillo, such as Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, Lubbock, Corpus Christi, and the list goes on and on. I would say the only downside to Texas is the ego that comes with it. Texans really do be walking around in size 14 shoes when their feet are clearly a size 9 because of the mantra, everything is bigger in Texas. You're not fooling anyone, Billy. You're out here walking around in clown shoes, okay? But what if I told you if you leave the US, your dollar can become bigger and stronger? I used to backpack around the world when I left the army, and let me tell you, it opened my eyes. Just experiencing different cultures and cuisines in person is something I think every man should go through. It is, dare I say, life-changing, especially if you find yourself in Bangkok drinking the night away with new friends and then end up making out with a ladyboy named Destiny. Which brings me to the first recommendation, which is Thailand. If you're over the age of 50 and you have more than $22,000 in your bank account, or you have a monthly income of at least $1,800, you can qualify for a retirement visa. And with that visa, you can move there and live in peace. On the reals though, if you're into the beach life, very inexpensive massages, and super friendly people, then Thailand doesn't sound half bad, does it? And I personally think Thai food is really good, but if they ever ask you at a restaurant how spicy you want it, don't let your ego get to your head. Just tell them 0 or 1. Your butthole will thank you later. The spice scale for Thai food is on another level. Another recommendation would be Indonesia. Did you know that Indonesia has the 4th biggest population in the world? The retirement visa for Indonesia is available to you if you're at least 55 and if you can prove a cash flow of $1,500 a month or $18,000 annually. It's also a super religious community, so do keep that in mind. However, with that said, Indonesian food is pretty good if you can tolerate spices, but they don't really eat pork. Chicken is the go-to protein source for most of their dishes. What are my thoughts? I think Indonesia is kind of like a tropical paradise, but the weather is absolutely a no-go for me as it's hot and humid all year round. But if you're into that, hey, Indonesia. The next recommendation is going to be in Africa. No, I'm just joking. It's in South America. aka America's beard. Colombia. Colombia is known for their soccer, nightlife, and women. And the retirement visa requires you to be over the age of 65 and to have a monthly income of at least 3 times Colombia's minimum monthly wage, which is about $1,000 a month. So in theory, you could have a much higher quality of life in Colombia with those $1,200 a month in dividends than, say, the US. And call me ignorant, but I'll be honest, I actually don't know anything about Colombian food. So please let me know what the best Colombian foods are, because I'm willing to give it a try. And last but not least, it's Costa Rica. Costa Rica, it's near Mexico and is bordered by Panama and Nicaragua. And let me tell you, Costa Rica isn't just home to really good baseball players, but it's also a hidden gem full of rainforests, genuinely happy people, and good surfing. Now, to qualify for a retirement visa, you have to be 18 years old and have a guaranteed monthly income of at least $1,000 from a pension or other source. That's not too crazy, right? And here's a fun fact about Costa Rica. They actually don't have a military, and that's wonderful because I think it would be awesome if the entire world and its people could just live in peace and harmony. But the reality is there is evil in this world, and when evil people use their military to do wicked things, it requires good men to do something about it. And that's why, hate it or love it, the military is a necessary evil, because without trained forces to stop evil, the world would be a scary place for the innocent. And even in the past 100 years, there's so many examples of that happening. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. So in conclusion, everyone's life circumstances and situation is different. So if $200,000 is your retirement number, well, it's possible with the different options that we explored today. And one thing I forgot to mention is you could also move in with your family or find a roommate to split the bills with. No, but really, can you imagine that? Sharing a house with 4 different dividend investors and splitting the bills together? We could have board game and beer nights and watch history documentaries together. And maybe even wrestle butt naked here and there. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, there you have it, folks. And you best believe I'm going to make a sequel for $500,000 because this is pretty interesting content for me. With that said, stay safe and I will talk to you next time.